Mr. Austin, you're going to give us the go ahead. Thank you, sir. Welcome, everybody, to the regular meeting of the Macomb City Council for Monday, August the 25th. It is 5:28 p.m. by my clock. I'll call the meeting to order. We just had some input from the community about our sound quality last week, so if I had everybody just perhaps raise their voice up a octave or two and speak closely into the microphone. We're waiting on electronic part to be here, hopefully within the next week, and we take care of it once and for all. So hopefully things are a little better tonight. But with respect to the agendas, are there any consent agenda items that you would like to have removed, Council? Councilor Dawes? Thank you, Mayor Casey. Motion to accept consent agenda as consent. Thank you. Last chance. Anybody thought of anything? Just go ahead and vote. Folks registered successfully. Well, in a critical one like this, I'm going to ask for a show of hands. Did anyone vote against this? Very good. We'll move on. Sure. That is unanimously approved. Thanks, everyone. With respect to the overall agenda, I did have some input from one of the proponents who wanted to withdraw the request. That is item 6.2 from Down and Company. With that in mind, that does leave the item there for downtown storefront enhancement portion. I'd like to leave that portion of the item in there for discussion. Reasonable. Okay. Once again, with the line that the proponent is no longer pressing response. Any other items?
Thanks for Chrissy. I make a motion that we accept the agenda as amended.
Thank you. See no other lights on. Please go ahead and vote. And that is unanimously accepted as well. Thanks, everyone. Let's move into our business for this evening. Item 6.1 under request for decision. Andrew McKinnon, if you care to join us, please, and go over the Q2 financial report.
Good evening, Mayor, Chrissy, and Council. I am brought with my staff at the meeting was supposed to be my next report.
To suggest we couldn't afford the red lights.
Good evening. Mayor City Council, I work with being one of the staff members, it's Mrs. Kathy Anderson, she is the supervisor for the conditions, and she did the bulk of work behind this report, so I just thought I'd bring the base behind work to presentation. So tonight's purpose is to provide council with financial information related to the city's 2025 Q2 year's report, which includes all from January to June 2025. Means the budget for January or ready for January to June. We're kind of motion for council's information to receive. Financial position as of June 30th, 2025 remains fairly strong. We are reporting a year-to-date surplus of 1.7 million, that's net. The surplus is mainly the result of timing differences in both revenues and expenditures. It's important to note that the surplus will decrease over the remainder of the year as the time expenditures over. Total revenues are 842,000 higher than budget, which is about 2.15% over year-to-date budget. Key items driving this variance our business service fees are 284,000 over budget, mainly because the Parallax water supply and storage agreement has brought in additional revenue, which is offset by transfer to the reserves, and that's about $380,000 from us. And then there's a security clearance deficit of 168,000 year to date. Grants, including new grants that was unbudgeted for the provincial water camera, plus immediate timing differences in other grants. Other sources, 445,000 over budget, primarily due to 3 unbudgeted items. One is the $22,000 construction events. Another 124,000 affordable housing rent that was returned from redistribution in 2025. And 221,000 transfer from the Red Deer Community District Foundation. Reissued to the Trade Foundation. That's not the correct name of the foundation, I apologize. It's now Regional Foundation. But the Blue Tree has revenue and we've got a grant awarded to it, and it came through the city to be distributed. So that's why it's showing our revenue. There's not an expense. The expenses, year-to-date expenses are 900,000 under budget, which results in about 3.2% variance of year-to-date budget. Key variances include funding to others, 221,000 again, budgeted from the Blue Tree transfer, timing difference, and year-to-date variance is 109,000 over budget. Overall for the financial, there's other challenges, differences that were occurring. Goods and services expenses are 442,000 under budget, which is 10.65%. Timing differences across departments and professional services, training, travel, supplies are the cause of that under expenditure to date. Personnel, wages and benefits are 442,000 under budget, 4.5%. And due to vacancies from short-term disability, WCB recruitment delays. Requisitions are 317,000 under budget. This is the school requisitions. And the reason for that is that we pay ordinarily the small requisitions in the election to requisition at a lower rate and a higher catch-up will happen in December. Transfer to reserves under the 2025 budget policy surplus water storage revenue is transferred to the general capital reserve, creating a surplus there. And as of June 30th, $430,000 has been received and resulting in a $330,000 plus transfer to reserves. Closing, in summary, revenues are markedly higher than expected. Expenses are trending lower due to mostly timing differences. And the city remains a very strong financial position throughout the year. It is expected to come out to the end of the year. So that's the end of the report for tonight. If you have any questions, please put them in.
Appreciate that, Manager Ken. Just one item is with respect to the Parallax contract. I said there's a 284,000 surplus.
It's 330,000 on the transfer to the reserve side. It's about 380,000 on the revenue side. The timing differences on budgets that year.
So 384, and that's in excess of the contract of the minimum contract minimum of 100,000.
That's correct.
Okay, this. Councillor Boucher.
Thanks, Mayor Christie. So just a tiny question regarding that paralysis. Is that a new thing? Like, or, okay, have we been alerted to the new name? I mean, we are late to the party, but the ownership changed last year. We didn't change the name at that time. Okay, so it is the same contract that we've always been involved. That's correct. Great, thank you. Yeah, follow up. Sure. The foundation that you're referring to are we just a channel for that money? That is correct. Yes, so the reason why community foundation is funds through the city of Philadelphia ACS charitable status. And now that the Broomtree has their own charitable status, that fund will not have to have a it'll go directly to the Broomtree teacher say, well, charitable. So okay, thank you. That's also new news since I've asked them that. So, and then last but not least, sorry, maybe I call them timing differences. So I guess I was led to believe that the budget is prorated at time to reflect known timing differences. So even though that prorating happens, there still is timing differences, you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
And mostly in areas that it's discretionary spending, like professional services, somebody might have budgeted a contract for the year. We didn't allocate that line to get it divided it equally across the year. The meetings have travel, training, they don't happen equally throughout the year for peak seasons and even just overall expenses, like there could be, as we see the year goes on, those emergency funds may be low, so they didn't see that they receive those funds. Thank you.
Councillor Ellison.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Just a quick question regarding the Wolf Creek Recycle location. Is that expense reflected in goods and services? Or is that?
It's funding to you're talking about the contract?
Yeah, well, no, whatever the cost was, like you're almost $400,000, I understand the cost of that in 1 year. Now we won't have responsibility for that, or is that reflected?
It's not going to be
Director Thompson, when did those obligations? These for the city. Just curious because.
Hi. To Mayor Creasy, the EPR program commenced in the spring, and then in some municipalities like home, the transition period was until July for disclose since July. EPR program is running on our site. We are, and in fact, we are paid to maintain the site, do clean out the garbage. It's a modest revenue source.
Very good. That was just a clever way of giving our financial team a little more time to find information. However, given that information, I think it's unreasonable to expect that that's going to be reflected in these quarterly results.
Ask the question.
Thank you.
There is a recycling depot line in your NSB you can see, and the year-to-date budget was 190,000, or 114,000. We spent 190, but as of June, this is a timing difference. There should be no more expenditures other than half-off stuff. But I think that we require for the recycling. It's off contract. No, information.
So as now there is funding budgeting for that, I assume, is that you thought of going down? How would that be accounted for?
So there right now, our year-to-date, our total year budget was 280,000, and we spent 109,000 as of the end of June. So the majority of it, and we expect to spend 2.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Getting back to the security clearances revenue shortfall, has that improved since our last report? Obviously, we had a budget amendment for the company service, and if it has improved, does that reduce the percentage operational that we may be facing for tax increase coming later?
Thanks for that question. Indeed, the security clearance already has some dedicated resources into doing some of the work, and we've seen increase in the monthly income, which is expected to be in the future, which will reduce the budget reduction for next year. Communities.
One item that we didn't discuss for trying to collect payments for years is capital projects. So I think that's a pretty significant number. I would expect we'll have some catch up work to do for that for everybody to do.
That's correct. For the most part, the capital stuff is going to appear in this area support. Just the ad hoc upgrades that fall within the operating budget. The major capital projects are not, that it's capital area support and the NPO of the core results, each of those projects.
Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Member Brucey. I just go ahead and make a motion that council acknowledges receipt to the 2025 quarter 2 financial report. Thank you.
Thank you. Next opportunity, any additional comments or questions? Very good, go ahead and vote. Very good, that is unanimously supported. Everyone. The next item up. It's item 6.2 with respect to the storefront enhancement program and possible changes for consideration there.
Thank you, Mayor Freese and members of council. So the City of Macomb does offer various programs to support the community, and one of these programs is the Downtown Storefront Enhancement Program. The goals are to promote viability of retail and commercial sector and to build pride in the community, particularly in the downtown. There are grants for up to $2,000 offered, and there's various undertakings or improvements that are potentially funded under the grant, including, for example, lighting, window stores, landscaping, facade cleaning, and painting. And each year the grant deadline is April 30th. The program first came about as a pilot program in 2020 and was then made a permanent program. It has not been updated since that time. It is currently administered through the Echo-Lacombe Association. And while it does link back to design standards and goals of the downtown area redevelopment plan, there is really no role for the DARP committee, for example, in contemplated in their role in the granting criteria. And of course, construction and renovation costs have been rising in the last few years, as we know, but the amount of the grant has not increased. So administration, in reviewing this, felt that it would be an appropriate time to review the grant program, and a review could consider possible funding amount limit increases, the role of the DARP committee in decision making, which, as I said, is currently with Echo-Lacombe, and the scope of the types of projects funded. So right now there's an emphasis on some of the DARP standards, but there could be increased emphasis on beautification of public access or safety or other elements that the review might address. So tonight, administration is recommending that council direct administration to review the Downtown Storefront Enhancement Program in terms of potential increased funding amounts offered under the program, method of administration of the program, and eligibility scope of the program to return with recommendations to council in 2026.
Thank you. CEO Gowdy.
Just a clarification. I think that the program was transferred to the Echo-Lacombe Association in 2020, but it was in existence before And so the original amount, $2,000, I think it's probably 10 years or more that it's been at that level. Just to.
Councilor Davis.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'm going to go ahead and make that first motion and then actually have just a couple comments. So I move that council direct administration to review the downtown storefront enhancement program in terms of potential increased funding and profit under the program, method of administration of the program, and eligibility scope of the program to return with recommendations to council in 2026. The few comments that I have in that, that is what I was hoping from coming out of last meeting's presentation was a review of that program specifically, because then of course there'll be criteria that can be applied to equally to all businesses. I would like to see the potential of maybe 2 tiers where you have like a small storefront versus, you know, a large building. The fact that they both qualify for the same funding is probably not ideal. So that would be worth exploring. And then just one further comment as somebody who sits on the ECHO board, who currently does review that program and hands out grants. When you have a business that has potentially multi-businesses located within it, it isn't very clear as to, you know, can a property owner, you know, / business owner apply multiple times for a grant, or are they limited to a single grant? Also potentially some further clarification on storefront, meaning that it only faces like public road. What about a business that might, their main doors might be the rear or the side? So maybe some further clarification around that. And yeah, I have one more, but it's slipped my mind, but it might fall back in there. So I'll give the floor to someone else.
Thank you, Councilor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Casey. Yeah, I guess interesting change of events here right before the meeting, but still, I think thank you to property owners for their efforts and vision in revitalizing and enhancing buildings on the main corridor community. Thank you to administration for returning the site quickly and bringing what I consider to be very valuable contributions for the continued improvement and sustainability of our downtown commercial area. Thank you to our community members who actively engaged in this. They were very quick on it, and I was pleased with the emails, the phone calls, and I truly appreciate it when people are engaged before the fact, and people did it in a thoughtful and respectful manner. I do believe in city beautification over basic utilitarian design. Beautification results in improved mental health, well-being, economic growth, stronger community identity and civic pride, increased social interaction, safer environments, and I think we could go on and on and on. Program in place was created for this purpose and fairly evaluates requests like this. Councillor Gibbs brought up some excellent points that I was not aware of, so grateful for that. And maybe we have waited too long to check in to ensure this process is appropriate and dollar values remain valuable. But my hope is that we can correct that starting tonight. Thank you.
Councilor Davis.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I didn't remember what under was said. I apologize for that. There's also some clarity on typically when a grant proposal comes forward, the project has not been actioned yet. It's something that's they're thinking about doing, and they're obviously meant to submit, you know, the drawings and the estimates and everything else. There does come times where people are applying after the fact, or would be thinking they would be applying after the fact. So I guess that would be another further thing to be clarifying, whether it's something, you know, maybe they can, but it has to be within 6 months of completion, or something based on available funds. Of course, that deadline, I think it's worth pointing out as well, is in April, but if there's still unallocated funds, people can apply after the fact. This year, I believe the funds were completely expensed, so there is no longer any available for 2025. But some years that is not the case, some years it's undersubscribed. So it is still worth looking at if someone has thinking that they want to do that for their business, because that will differ year to year.
See no other. It's not really care to have the motion right back to work. Apparently not, so please proceed to vote. And it's unanimous. Review will be back in 2026 for council to review. Next item up is for CEO Gowdy, bylaw 511.1, municipal police commission bylaw amendment. Before us for a second and possibly third reading.
Thank you, Mayor Christie. For council this evening is a request for a second reading, bylaw 511.1, which amends the Macomb Police Commission. Composition of the commission itself is due to some changes with the province appointing members. In Macomb's case, they can appoint 1 or 2 members, which brings the total membership to 6 or 7 members. This time we've only appointed 1 member. Communities of less than 25,000 people are able to appoint 5 members to the commission, and 1 or 2, actually, sorry, 0, 1 or 2 may be city councilors. City councilors or employees of the municipality section. Our recommendation was to have 2 members of council on the commission, with having more than 1 voice, maybe allows for a little more influence of the commission to council, and that was the reason for the recommendation before. At first reading, Councilor Hoekstra also sits on this commission with Councilor Koenig. And we made statements of like reflecting what I know is the designer of the police commission. I'd like to amend the first reading to the second option we gave, which was 1 plus 4. Tonight, I have actually reiterated my original recommendation of 2 members on council, which would require first amending the bylaw that's given the first reading and then giving the second reading. Which is actually, it was an unusual move, but I do still actually think that is the recommendations. Acknowledging that it's obviously council's choice, and the commission, I do believe, would advocate for 1 municipal. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions as to why we made that recommendation for the content of the bylaw.
Very good, thank you. Councilor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Christie. I have spoken with CEO Gowdy, so it's not new to him, but I guess what is not represented in this request for decision is the historical reality of what the commission was. The commission has only had 2 council members on it for less than a year. And the desire was that we were anticipating a commission that could be larger than 9 or 10. We actually have, there's some confusion about the numbers, so 2 council members made sense. Now it's down to 6, maybe 7. I think it has served the community well with 1 member in the past, but I was curious whether we could amend this further in a different direction. Could we not have an alternate? so that if the one could not attend, the other council member could be there. Not that they both are ever there at the same meeting, because I do believe strongly in having council representation at the commission, but does that fit with the act? I was just curious about that.
There's no provision for an alternate in the act. So with the commission's agreement, I think it's to be either a participatory member in discussions, they would not have to be put to the vote. So, yeah, odd situation, we have not explored municipal affairs. I think it would be a real challenge to have them be a voting member.
Councilor Mellis.
Thank you, Mayor Tracy. May I wait until Councilor Connick goes, because he sits on the committee?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Councilor Tuck.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilor Nelson, was going to say, but thank you. I'm with Councilor Hoops for this. I think we've had one member for a very long time that has served us well. I think you look at the history of the police commissions in general and why they were brought into being. Back in the day, there was a lot of political interference and political influence on policing, and police commissions came about as a result. They act as an oversight body made up of members of the public, members at large. And the main reason behind that is that you don't have that political interference, that political influence, if you will. And I think there's a real danger now when we can see this switch where we have 2 council members and 2 provincial appointees and only 3 public members at large. And I think that's a little dangerous. I think you've got a lot of political influence when there shouldn't be. The whole idea of the police commission was to have this oversight body that was independent of the municipality, if you will, in that they were just, members at large, so to speak. So I think 1 is sufficient. I think it's worked the last few years I've been around. I hate saying that all the time, but anyways, we've seen 2 of us there, but I mean, honestly, time that we've been there together, I don't see any increased value in the 2 of us being there. I think really I value the members at large, the public especially, because they come from a perspective that isn't unduly influenced. They're just, all they're concerned about is the police service and overseeing it, and they're not tied to the politics of the day, if you will. So I'm in favor of reading it at 1 myself. Thank you.
Councilor Nellis.
Thank you, Mayor Casey. Yes, I am in a unique situation where I have not served on this committee, and it's only my first term of seeing it in operation. And so I am in contradiction with our 2 councillors that are on this committee. I support the recommended motion to include 2 members of council on the police committee. I do understand the value of this committee not being steered directly by city council, and I believe that this would continue to be the case if there were 3 other outside members of council. I think it's important to remember that this organization is a very large piece of the city, and we need to ensure that our community members' voices are represented fairly. I believe that councillors receive far more feedback than regular members of the committee, and as such, we have unique situations where we can share those voices in that community setting, and it's important that we are doing that. In no way criticizing the council members who have put significant time and effort into their roles in this committee, but in fact stating how important I think our rules are there and maintaining that communication and commitment to our community members. I think especially if there was 2 appointed provincial members, that would be even more important to have 2 local members on there, ensuring that our community needs are being met and represented fairly. Thank you.
Councilor Hoops.
Thank you, Mayor Christie. I do believe there's no motion read right now, so I would like to go ahead and make that motion that council amend bylaw 511.1 prior to second reading to reflect option 1, establishing a 5-member commission with 2 council members and 3 public members. And I would, I guess, largely echo what Councilor Dallas said. Even with 2 members of council, you're still in a minority position because, of course, the members at large outnumber you. And I think as the primary funder, it would be odd to me that you would potentially have 2 provincial appointees, but only 1 council member with a voice at the table. So I think that it is very important to recognize, yes, we're councillors, but we still do represent the voice of the people as well. And I don't think that should be discounted because we hold this position and somehow that makes that voice less important than, than a citizen. There still would be, that would still be the majority position is the members at large from the community. And I did vote, I wrote my rule, I always vote in favor of first readings, but because it got pulled out, I'm like, I'm going to be honest, this is the role that I think that we need to have going forward. Has it traditionally been the way that it has been? You could make an argument that it has worked fine, sure, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to work better going forward this way. We have a lot of economic pressures, as the financial report earlier showed us. And I honestly think that we just need to strengthen that collaboration. And by doing that, I think that we need to have 2 members as part of that commission going forward. So that's why I'm making the motion. I hope that members of council will support that going forward. I really do think this is an important step forward that we need to make with that commission.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I sure appreciate the wisdom that's around the table from everybody, and I particularly appreciate Councillor Connick's review of what the purpose of the commission is. But I'm curious, could this amendment not come into play when a second provincial appointee comes on board? Because we have no guarantee that that will happen. We brought this before us last year. It's coming here tonight. I still feel very strongly that if 1 member of the public is gone, it's equal. I think we are also considering optics. Our community really needs to believe that this commission is the voice of the public. And I think when it's going to be all equal sitting at the table, that concerns me. I too value the input from the public members. It's been excellent. We have particularly gifted appointed public members right now. So I would like to, if there's an appetite for this, let's wait until there's a second provincial.
There's lots of interesting input. That's one come up a little different. All of the individuals that are on our commissioner reflecting our community, whether they're councillors, provincial appointees, or members of council. So the fact of the matter is, the home-based service is funded by council, and we have a responsibility to look after it. And I think that to put the onus on 1 individual is a little unfair. And I think that from time to time we all miss a meeting or 2 here and there, and I don't think that 2nd person or superintendent or the chancellor better if you still having at least 1 individual there most of the time too. In no way, shape, or form somehow that tilts the balance of influence there. So it's not about that for me. It's simply about that proper transferring information back and forth and making sure that all aspects of the commission are reported back quickly and appropriately by other council representatives. So I will be supporting the motion as it stands currently. Once again, certainly appreciate your thoughts on it, especially the most current concern. Councillor Hilton. CEO Gowdy.
I'm just behind a little bit. I actually just wanted to follow up on the alternates discussion. So under the Police Act, there is other bodies contemplated, like the law enforcement board, for example. there, it does speak to alternates and it does not have specific appointments for requiring council resolution for police commissions. And so there's no provision for alternates that can participate or vote. Similarly, the RCMP Act actually has alternates that speak to that. But the municipal police commissions.
Thank you.
Councilor Hahn.
Thank you, because just a final comment on my report. I understand the constraints, and it is one of our biggest budget items. And I understand, we have to be on top of that in a fiscal manner, but to have two people say the same thing that one person has done in the past, I mean, I get it, but to suggest that maybe, that one person hasn't transferred that information correctly or appropriately or quickly or timely, and maybe having two would be better somehow. Messaging would be the same. That's my personal part to it, but I respect the comments that were made. And I understand the reason behind that. Just,
Anyone else? It's on your others, please proceed to vote. By a slim margin of 4-3, that it was passed the second reading against our Councillor Sloopstra, Wilson, and Hawk. Perhaps was an expectation of a third reading, and given a vote like that, would we see in the business and perhaps postponing third vote to allow for a little more public input, or do we wish to proceed? First, Councilor Gibbs.
Thank you, Rick Tracy. Just to clarify, that was an amending motion that I just made, so we actually haven't passed second reading. But I would actually like to, proceed with that if possible. I move that council gives second reading to bylaw 511.1 as amended. Thank you.
It's all to you. Thank you. It's we see no additional input. Please proceed. Similarly, that is past 4-3, Councilors Booster, Wilson, Conick. Yes. Councilor Dallas.
Thank you, Rick Casey. I will. Sorry, I'll read the motion that council resolves to consider the third reading of bylaw 511.1 at the same meeting as second reading.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak? Please go ahead and vote. Does take about a majority of 100% for consideration. So with start Councilor Sloopstra, Tracy, and myself, our needs will come before us. Expect next meeting. So just get all ready meeting, but like the next meeting. Thanks, everyone. Director Alderson, next up is item 6.4, the Public Works Shop demolition. Okay. For this.
Good evening, Mayor Precinct Council. We've been in our new building for almost a year now, and we're seeking approval to dispose of our old public works yard buildings and contents to public auction. This auction, depending on what is sold, might render the buildings uninhabitable. Relocating these buildings isn't cost effective, as the costs for moving the buildings, moving the utilities out of the way, traffic light, rail light adjustments would exceed the new construction costs. After the auction, the administration will proceed with RFPs for hazardous material assessments, abatement, demolition, and relocation of the Wolf Creek School maintenance building, utilities, and this will support future site development. The cleaning requirements will follow Alberta environment standards depending on future land use. 2026 budget, we allowed 500,000 set aside for this demolition and cleanup. The project costs range are estimated between $600 and $2 million, with the auction proceeds offsetting these costs. Updated figures will be brought back to council future proposals. There's no immediate impact on operations. This aligns with our strategic goals around sustainable infrastructure, service delivery, and community growth. And the recommended motion is that council approve the disposal of all contents of buildings of the old public works yard through public auction, and the buildings declared uninhabitable following the removal of contents or sale of the buildings. And also proceed with the request for proposals for hazard assessment materials, demolition and removal of relocation, and environmental assessments associated with the site restoration. The updated cost we brought back to council following these assessments. Any questions?
Question then, Director Alderson. Councilor Conick, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Christie. I'm not opposed to the motions that I do. I did find it just a comment, and just I'm curious how we find it cost prohibitive to move those buildings. Yet we're hoping someone will buy them and do the very thing that we don't think is expensive, or we think is expensive. So I get trying to get whatever dollars we can get for what's there. But I look forward to seeing if anyone will actually buy the buildings, because I'm not sure that say that's even happen. But anyways, you can try.
Interesting point, Councilor Conick. I think there's certainly a lot of items that probably will sell, whether or not people inspiration. It goes up to public auction, it's got an opportunity, it's getting prepared on that, so I think it's still the appropriate option. Councilor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Casey. Yeah, I'm happy to see this. I think it's an eyesore, and we have waited and we can move forward with this. So I'll make the motion and just can ask a question after that. Motion that council approves the disposal of all contents and buildings at the old public works yard through public auction, and the buildings being declared uninhabitable following removal of all contents and or sale of buildings. Continue. Relocation of utilities for the Wolf Creek building, they will remain on site and using that section of the yard, and just everything else will be happening around it and removal.
That is correct. Yeah, the utilities for the Wolf Creek maintenance building come off our building, so that's why they're going to get relocated to establish their own heat from the main.
Certainly. Thank you. And is the Wolf Creek building city owned, or is it Wolf Creek owned? Thank you.
Also, in that report, there was also some discussion of the preparation of that yard. And that is that something that we need to go over now, or that come back in time of demolition work?
Like how the yards to be left after the demolition. Yeah, they'll, this will apply to either leave it as grass and for our bylaw or apply to NPC to get it as gravel.
My perspective, I think that was just see it's a gravel, grass for the time being. One day that it can develop, but until that time, I don't think that's in our best interest to go out and plant grass and have that maintenance there. Thanks all.
Yeah, I agree.
Anything additional? Anyone here to houses, motion right back on? Very good, please proceed to vote. It's passed unanimously. Excuse me. Councilor Buck.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I take the second motion that's left. That council directs administration to proceed with requests for proposals for hazardous materials assessment and abatement, demolition, utility removal, and relocation, environmental site assessments and associated site restoration, and that updated costs be reported back to council following completion of these assessments. Just a quick comment on that. When this all comes back to council, of course, I won't be here, but just for my own, just throwing out there, it's my hope that the council today will look to remediate that site. I think it was going down to here to a residential standard. I know that's the highest level, but it then gives us the most options as the city what that could be used for going forward, whether it's future city use or they talk about industrial, which I think something we don't want to go back to, but just throwing it out there that it is not what was on council today. We'll look to do look to the higher standard. That way it gives us options, many options going forward as to use. Thank you.
That takes us to item 6.5. We have to. Have you been on the ball tonight, isn't it? No. People in relocation, environmental site assessments. Very good. Please go ahead and vote that. You wouldn't have to vote 7. That is unanimously approved. Thank you. Director Ishay, bylaw 389.1, item 6.5.
Thank you, Mayor Christie, and good evening, council. This evening, administration is presenting 389.1, an amendment for the fire services bylaw for second reading. First reading was received on August 11th through the consent agenda. So a bit of background on this bylaw is that it was passed in September of 2013, and there has been no amendments on it since. The fire service bill has had some major changes over the last few years. There's been the dissolution in 2015 of the regional fire service. We've added some full-time staff, and there's been a new fee-for-service model agreement that has been set with Lacombe County. But I have to say that original bylaw has stood the test of time, and but we need a few updates now. So some of the general updates that we're proposing is that there's some grammar and gender neutral language and consistency of terminology that is being proposed in many of the clauses there. There's some new definitions such as chief officer, company officer, and fire alarm. And then we're removing some outdated terms related to the dissolved regional fire service. To focus on a few key sections, though, that do make a bit of an impact is one is on section 5, with the chief's authority to be more clarified. The chief must follow city policies and directives. However, the chief must also draft standard operating guidelines and codes of practices. However, the chief still has to keep up to date with current and relevant standards, and one is that with including pay and call rates. And he has to make those recommendations to the CAO. Under section 6.4, we're removing the section about the flashing green light program. Over the last few years, it's been phased out of the fire service, and we haven't been using it anymore. So we're just taking it out of the bylaw for now. Under section 8, there is a change for cost changes the cost for compliance that can be added to tax rolls and land improvements. This change is proposed to address potential incidents where buildings could be subjected to fire. However, the building owner leases the land that they occupy. And often the building owner will pay tax just on the building or land improvement and not on the land itself. This is very common in manufactured home parks. And so one of the things is that this kind of change allows any costs that are overdue to be applied to the tax rate of the building versus just the land it's on. Section 11, as it stands right now, the way the bylaw is written, everybody gets a reset at the beginning of the year for a false alarm. Nowhere in any law is that really allowed. So if you look at the traffic law, if you get a speeding ticket, the next year you do not get a brand new reset of that and get a free warning. So that is one of the changes that we're making, is in the taking out that reset out of the new year where you get one free false alarm warning. So we're also introducing what's called cold responses. And this is to ensure that when there is a false alarm and the public feels that they've put it out and there's say a flash of some hot oil or something like that, this allows firefighter or command vehicle of the fire chief to go and respond and to do a safety check on that building to ensure that there's no carbon monoxide or any hot areas in the box. And they'll just do that as a reduced rate, then actually full fire service come out for a false alarm. Under section 13, we added safe fire pit dimensions and then the permitted wood type that can be burned. Previously, the bylaw only spoke to the height of flames. It didn't actually set the size of a fire pit. And we have had some incidences where fires are quite large. They're not high, but they're quite wide. So that was something that was proposed to have some limitations on how high the size of a fire pit. Under section 14, the fireworks storage has been updated to the 2023 national plan. And under section 15, it removes all the references to the regional fire chief any authority over firearms. Further into the towards the end of the bylaw, we have Schedule A and Schedule B. Schedule A is the fees, rates and fees for the fire service. And what it does, it aligns with the Alberta transportation rates that we currently use for our agreement with local county services. It will update automatically each year, but it's a set rate that was put out. Under Schedule B, that's your fines and penalties. And again, we were getting working to do the reset of fines on an annual basis. And then we've also increased some fines as there hasn't been any increase in these for over 12 years. And it just makes it a little bit more better to that's what I'm thinking, basically to prohibit people from setting fires and doing things against bylaw. So aside from that, we're recommending for second reading right now for the fire services bylaw 389.1. And at this time, I'm happy to take any questions.
Appreciate it, Director Bichet. See what your lights on, so I'll start. Always at the end of our fees charges, there is standby fee. Just curious. What is the most common item that is? It comes to play. The reason I ask is the amount is $200 for 15 minutes, which is that's more than any of the units when they're in full use. I just
Gonna pass that over to Chief Fleming as the one who does respond on standbys.
good, actually. Chief, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. See, so standby is basically for all mutual aid responses. When you respond to backfalls, we usually never continue to fire by the response. Depending on the size of the incidents, so usually standby as a high, we have a decision for the events with speed.
Okay, that's fair enough. So what is the rationale for that being higher than the being used rate for any and all of these?
It's just standard practice, just trying responses. Black Hills Fire has us as well. It's just a standard fee for personnel waiting around just in case there's extra hands that are needed. Larger events themselves. Sometimes it's, we don't like to say that a full contingent out when train responses, we like to be able to certain city as well. But it's just guaranteeing standby fee that we have those personnel in there, just in case we need to send the city itself.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Khan.
Thank you, Mayor Casey. Just a couple of questions. If I may, the green light, flashing light in members' vehicles. I'm just curious as to why it was. I mean, I thought it was effective, but maybe again, there was a lot of people who didn't what that meant and didn't move over or anything. But I just am wondering the rationale why to just do away with it altogether. Fine. We had a program, we haven't issued any green lights since my tenure here as fire chief, and I believe the prior to joining the fire department. There's just a lot of instances and complaints from OPS and some residents, just the way the green light program is used, just responding members. We found that the green light program, some members are responsible for the green light program, but the large majority not. Just feel those complaints that we had in the future, in the past, we just decided to give the whole lights on really still much. I think I have one more. Just in terms of the fire pits, I like the regulations that are in place here, but I guess it's complaint driven, I guess, for the most part, because I think if I fix that, don't make it tight that, so I do have setbacks and so forth, and I guess it's just neighbors bringing attention to it, I guess. The only ways that can be, yeah, looking at mountains. Out of our bylaws, I guess.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'm just going to make that recommended motion to council give second reading of bylaw 389.1 first.
Chief, is there some sort of mechanism that can make it easier for members to station time being that the green light program is not in place, or is this a insurance liability thing, or just seems odd to me that we expect a prompt response from the fire department emergency services personnel, but we give no ability to get to the emergency vehicles, their own vehicles, in as efficient a way as possible.
You see, a lot of the fire departments have started to move away from the green light program. Efficiency, well, that's held awareness with members responding, it doesn't necessarily create a fast response. As far as just just having more issues with the Green Line program themselves and just speaking with other larger fire department services, they choose operate programs. It doesn't need any special powers to go to red lines or anything else like that. The slab of bay traffic rules and everything else is time saving just for anything.
Thanks. Anyone else? We're going to do that motion for us, Councilor Ross. Let's go ahead and vote. And second reading for bylaw 389.1 is passed unanimously. The next item up is item 6.7. Council motion brought forward by Councilor Collison. Sorry, I saw fire. Item 6.6, fire service level policy. Isn't that a coincidence? You're still there, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. Good to see you, councillors. This evening, administration is presenting a new fire service policy for efficient. It's not been here to present an updated fire service level policy for the city of Macomb. One that positions us firmly in the modern era, enhances transparency, enhances policy. Our current fire service policy is the Macomb goal. While we assume it's time to not hold short as it contains updated references, offers only broad stroke expectations around training and lacks the detail required by today's standards. This new update introduces more than just refreshed language, it reflects contemporary best practices, aligns closely with NFPA standards, and sets clear, professional, and accountable benchmarks for our students. This update matters now because it ushers integration of NFPA standards, specifically for NFPA 1720, as a guiding benchmark rather than a region mandate, offering robust research guidance for voluntary and combination fire departments to evaluate and adapt the fire services effectively. At the same time, the policy clearly defines expectations for training and certification, ensuring that every fire department member is properly equipped and qualified for their responsibilities. By aligning exact apparatus deployment tiers, it enhances operational transparency and supports better planning and communication with the public. Finally, it formalizes and strengthens a medical response framework, ensuring structured and responsible approach to medical emergencies, affirming a commitment to safety, clarity, and excellence in the service. First and foremost, we reaffirm our commitment to NFPA occupational health and safety standards as the foundation of our operations, providing a proven safety standard framework for all of our activities. Building on that foundation, we have strengthened training protocols. Certifications are now aligned with NFPA requirements, and training is now tailored to specific types of emergency responses, ensuring our members are fully prepared for the roles that they fulfill. When it comes to staffing, the standard of 6 personnel per emergency remains intact. However, recognizing real-world constraints, policy allows the first apparatus to deploy 4 responders to meet critical response times and goals, with the second unit supplementing to meet full staffing levels. Mutual aid will be invoked to train staffing levels for the short. We've replaced vague descriptors of emergency responses with detailed tables that align apparatus, officer assignments, specific role types, covering everything from aircraft agencies. And covering alongside alarms to fire safety code services. All this while defining our operational limits by such as confined space or hazmat scenarios. Inspections and investigations now incorporate under the adverse safety codes and the QRV framework for added clarity and efficiency. Medical first response capabilities have been expanded. Echo level responses now automatically dispatched for cardiac arrest and children events. While other echo medicals see a delayed fire response to ambulance delayed on the way for events. Since 2021, our fire department has handled 25 to 40 echoes annually, including 2 to 14 resuscitation calls each year. We are fully trained and equipped and continue to benefit from our Alberta Health Services and FOD funding, where we just executed another $7,500 in August of 2025. Our response benchmarks remain robust. Average shoot times are 11.5 minutes, with travel time varying depending on location. Other policy areas remain unchanged, such as pre-planning and protracted operations, while all references to the regional fire service. Family coordinated alarms can be put with clear protocol rules, requiring teams to force entry, default call responses, unless lights and sirens are warranted. A 50-minute wait for a key holder or safe, and direct instructions under Bible 389. Summary, this updated fire service daily policy brings us a modern, transparent, and thoroughly updated framework. It ensures that whether we're serving residents of the city of Macomb or our partners in Macomb County, expectations are equitable and clear, fostering trust and accountability. Most important, it also gives us operational flexibility, anchored firmly by professional standards so we can adapt to future challenges while maintaining service excellence. This policy in place will formally rescind the old fire service level, scope of practice policy, and adopt comprehensive forward-looking replacement. Happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you, Chief. So you much like to come on here, but it's always interesting when we speak with emergency personnel and comes out on the distance end of it here. We can be able to focus on some of the work that you do on our behalf, and it is genuinely appreciated despite some of the input and comments that you hear both in this room and out in the public. We will lead one to think that absolutely not. I can assure you everything does. So thank you for that. Councilor Tripp.
Thanks, Mayor Chrissy. So Chief, you said that like on this, there's a chart in the policy, so it says you need to send out 6 and 6 or whatever. But you're saying that sometimes that is possible. So it'll be 4, but then you will augment that with the next vehicle. Is that correct? Did I understand that correctly? And then secondly, we had heard some of this before. So is there an added cost to the city attached to this policy? Does that make sense? Like, yeah.
Sorry. As far as added costs, the previous council meetings, objective forecasting the future for medical responses. I don't foresee anything more than it is right now. It comes down to versus city response. You have the option to geographically change the response district, county versus the city itself. So just looking at the stats, I don't think it's going to be too much more. Willing to keep an eye on it and report back. It's kind of see where we're at. We do have the flexibility within the range to adapt and change anytime we want. It's just taking those first steps to actually get into the program and so we start to respond better. We will have the flexibility to increase that performance.
Yeah. I just would like to say thank you for the work. You do, we really appreciate it. I personally experienced it, so thank you.
Councilor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Casey. This falls outside of my realm of knowledge, so appreciate the reports and the discussion we get, and it looks like you guys are well represented in the room tonight. I'll make the motion that will approve the City of Macomb Fire Service Level Policy 23.210.02 2025 PO.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Please go ahead and vote. The policy is unanimously approved. Councilor Luttrell.
Thanks, Mayor Christie. I'll move that council rescind the existing City of Macomb service, I should say fire, City of Macomb Fire Service level agreements for practice policy LFG 100.4.
Thank you. Sorry, can't tell them input on this one. Very good. Please go ahead and vote. And likewise, that housekeeping item is unanimously approved. Thank you. Appreciate it, Chief. And the next item up. Item 6.7, Councilor Fellows.
Thank you, Mayor Christie. We'll read my notice of motion from August 11th. The council directed administration to pause work on the development of the new firewall at 4410 Woodland Drive, the current Ball Diamond location, and engage with the Lacombe Flying Club to explore the feasibility of locating the firewall at the North Airport site, being the north portion of 3910 63rd Avenue.
Certainly.
Thank you, Mayor Christie. I think it's responsible of us to look at this location. It wasn't available to us before. The Flying Club stepped up and brought it forward. So I think due to the public's response to the current location, the pushback that has come from a number of people, I hear it every day. And I think it's only responsible that council looks at this possible location that wasn't available to us in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Christie. Just a couple of things. So the way that the notice motion has been written, I don't think I can support it. However, I'm just wondering if the mover would accept a friendly amendment to not only look at this location, but perhaps a few others. Next to the golf course, for example, is a site, and perhaps they have a say, the mayor's brought this up at the east side of the tracks. Then I can get on board and looking at more than just one site. I think the east side of the tracks has always scared me. The notion of crossing the tracks twice to get to the fire on the west end, once for the volunteer firefighters to get there and once to come back. Worries me a little, but maybe I'm the minority here. Maybe this is a valid question. Fault. Would you support the location of the new fire hall on the east side of the tracks? So no, I don't know. But if we're going to go down this road, if we're going to pause the work on this site, then I'm wondering if we should look at more than just this one site. One more time. Ultimately, I think the final decision will rest with the next council, but I would support that idea. If we look at more than just one site again. The reason I like the Ball Diamond site to begin with was the lack of residential around it. There's a lot of residential north of the airport. So is that ideal? I don't know, but this is an issue within the city and within this chamber. And if we're going to pause work, then I would respectfully ask that maybe we have a friendly amendment, look at a couple other sites as well. It's city of man on the east end, and then the mayor has brought that up. I wasn't a fan of the idea, but if we're gonna pause this work, and let's look at more than just one site again, and let's see what else is out there. That would be our only ask of you.
So, Councillor Hodges, it's a matter of policies, or bylaws, we do not have to have the amendment thoughts, however, you necessarily if an amending motion should do so too. I think this, the sentiment is well taken with, just, we can't do that, then that's already in print.
Yeah, I would like to put forth a motion to make it not only the north airport site, but next to the golf course and east side of the tracks in the city. If I may.
You may use it. So it is correct for the record. Last legislative coordinator, the wording that you guys so far. There's some.
I just wanted to clarify that your amendment is that the motion is to look not only at the airport location, but that's of course and in this board.
On the east side of the tracks, city of man on the east side of the tracks.
Thanks for Chrissy. Am I speaking to the amendment though now, or what am I speaking to? Sorry.
You tell us.
Well, I guess what Councilor Bellison and I have been on this journey regarding the fire hall, and I certainly want to support some of the efforts, but what I argue with this notice of motion is that they're directing us to a specific site, and I think that the site should be determined. That would be my first thing. So I don't like the specifics of that in the motion. And secondly, I also want to respond to the public. We recently received some correspondence that said, we would like you, referring to City Council, to give more serious thought to a better location. And I guess I just want to remind the city citizens that we have given this very serious thought. We've spent years, and that's not an exaggeration, on what site we could choose. So by pausing this, are we doing our citizens the correct service? Are we leading them to believe that this was a flippant choice? We checked many sites, close to 30, over 30. Sometimes the numbers, I'm not exactly right, but I know that I would like to say to citizens, we gave this site serious thought. So that's one comment just in relation to stopping. But secondly, I'm troubled to support the motion because it has a specific site in it.
That's Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I concur with Councilor Holmstrom. There obviously has been citizens' concerns. I have the absolute utmost respect for several of them. They are friends that I have a tremendous amount of respect for. And then there's some that are extremely aggressive. That was unbelievable. We put every thought into every site, pros and cons. I think in hindsight, all due respect to administration, but when we came down to the last 3 or 5, there is no perfect site. Even with the suggested one, you're going through a residential site that I would be strongly inclined to say that them residents would then forward concerns if I've been going through their neighborhood. Our fire department responds to 350, 400 calls. So that's 30, 35 calls a month. This is the collaborative effort with the AHS to also enhance the service within this community, which they do 300 calls, 4,000 calls a year. So therefore then this geographically is in the center. These side streets create a visual perception concerning citizens that it is difficult intersection. I would have greatly appreciated city administration to follow through with final 3 or 5, how we could improve the accessibility for our emergency staff to continue on to their call by getting through this intersection. And I think that them options, I would like to ask the administration to give us information. What is AHS's choices? There are many intersections wherever the decision is to go that there are acknowledges. Currently, if the fire department has to go north of 2A, they have to go through 12 and Highway 2. That could be a red light, both lanes with vehicles. There are many intersections. You have to go to the golf course and you have to come back east. There's 6 lights that you have to go through town to get back to the east side. Emergency services deal with intersections daily and call. So give them credit to make that effort. If this current location is not, presents some difficulties, I think everybody's concern empathetically is life property. If there is improvements, I think it's only common sense that the chief and the deputy chiefs and the members would bring that and address it to administration and council and deal with it. Whether it's widening, moving services, putting a red flashing light farther down the street like the currently was on Highway 12 historically to stop traffic. There are options, and I'd like to hear from administration what are options to lessen the degree of curves, side streets, to allow vehicles to pursue, to get out of the road. We have diligently went over this since the start of this term, and I've my first question back to citizens that I have to say this is the wrong one. I say, give me a right one. And 90% say dated blank. They object to this location, but they don't give you a better one that doesn't deal with red lights, traffic, or residents. So anyways, I had a few questions with the administration. I'd like to know what are our options to improve the intersection. I'd like to know what AHS's first choices are, since they are part of this relocation of the fire hall, because this is important for that as well, of the delivery of service. So if I could have some questions answered by Edmund, please.
That questions are a little more just expected to answer tonight. If in fact you do want answers for those, then it's best that before this we allow the time to properly investigate those and many other questions. I think, to be fair to our community, I have no doubt that we have spent a great deal of time on this. However, we did not get it right, simply with the input that we have had. And people who use that area each and every day are absolutely dismayed that we would choose to put a very important portion of our community anywhere in relationship to one of the most difficult intersections in the community that we have. This is a decision, I get the whole time frame thing. This is a decision that's going to affect our community for an extremely long time. Not like our location or office building, we're talking 50, 75 years, I would expect. So I think, as painful as it might be, especially for some of the members here in the gallery, to see things delayed a few months one way or another at this point in time, I think will be a benefit to the community, because I truly believe that we can come up with better locations. And I too am not necessarily for pigeonholing precise locations at this time. There are a few that have been mentioned that are fine to investigate, and I think that we ought to the community to be diligent in this. And given the great deal of feedback that myself and others have had, I would suggest that our community very much feels that way too. They expect us to make confident decisions, and I think that a lot of events that happened during the course of our deliberations, things that were on this item kind of led us towards this site. And we need to do better. In order to do so, we need to step back and look at some of the other areas before us, because I truly believe that there are better ones. Councilor Davis.
Thank you, Mayor Christie. I guess I would just point out that currently the motion on the floor is the amendment, and we should actually be speaking to the amendment, and the last speakers have not largely been doing that. I will speak in favor of the amendment. I think if we're possibly going to go down this road, then we really should be considering a lot of other sites that were brought up that I think are worth a second look just as much, if not more than what was being proposed by the original motion. So on the amending a motion to add various other sites, I will vote in favor of that amending motion.
Thank you. CEO.
Thank you. Councillor Ross had a couple of questions. I can't answer all of them, so bear with me. But one of the questions was, what does AHS think? So currently, AHS is of the understanding that the ball island site is the selected site. When we went back to the original ratings from January 1, 2024, 2023. The AHS select the current site of the ball island site as the number one choice, as the city council. The fifth choice was the north side of the for both bonds. You had a question about making modifications to improve the intersection. We haven't gone down looking at modifications. We did include a traffic impact assessment, which showed with 20 years of traffic growth and the fire department there, that intersection will continue to operate at the level of service A or B for all motions. So this is one more question. If there was possible structural changes. Certainly you could look at other options like this lights that you talked about, some sort of activated light type system or fire lane, restricted parking along there, possibly. Currently, you didn't, the traffic impact assessment show the need to do that. I guess I do want to also acknowledge that the ratings that we're talking about are 2.5 years old. So if that was the rating at the time, obviously, to a lot of talk tonight about like, what about input that we've received since the decision? Is that relevant? Is that a factor to consider? And that is something you have to weigh. So I can answer all the questions. That's
so we get our motions correct here. I understand that there's been some appetite for either direction on specific sites. There's also been some interest with not limiting it to sites, just opening up altogether. So would it be appropriate for those that are interested in seeing an alternate site of some sort, perhaps look for this, and then we'll entertain another motion after if someone chooses to make one with respect to no specific sites. What would be the least confusing? If CEO Gowdy want to take forward to Councilor Billis.
Thank you, Mayor Christie. I'd just like to say that I love the idea of looking at some other sites also. I mean, when we did our tour, there's fire halls on the other side of the tracks at other locations, and they indicated they had no issues with it. The same railway tracks being out to our community, because that was a question we asked them at the time. So I mean, absolutely, it's our responsibility to get this right. And as Mayor Christie said, this is a 50 or 60-year-old building for us. But into the future, we need to make the right decision, and that's where this came from. And from all the people that have expressed their I guess, I shouldn't say sadness, but certainly concerns regarding the current location. And I have another question, how firmed up is HS? Yeah, signed anything to be in the facilities, correct?
There's no location set.
No, but I mean, have they indicated for sure that they would be in our facility?
No, there's still uncertainty with the location, so they're not gonna commit to cohabitating because they don't know where they're located.
So. Well, I don't quite understand that, but I would think that they could say that, yes, we would be interested in being in the new fire hall and sign for that. And be willing to go there. If it's a reasonable location, which we know any location like it will be reasonable for them if it's reasonable for the ratings.
They've given a letter of intent, but a lot of, whether it's this or the federal grant that we have in place for the fire hall, they depend on a physical geographic location, a named spot. And so when there isn't one locked down, they won't enter into an agreement for that. They've given us a letter of intent that they are interested in doing that, but the design is dependent on location, down there, so down. So that's why there's a pause. We stop working on that design.
Okay, for the amending motion, which we voted on first, so that lots of water in the bridge here, so that I have our legislative party here. Read the test, so everybody's clear on exactly what we're doing.
There could be amending motion by Councillor Connor. Comment is that the motion be amended to include consideration of a location not only next to the airport, but also near the golf course and on city-owned land on the east side of the train tracks.
Thank you, CEO Gowdy. Give me a few moments to that with respect to those individuals that don't want to see this not on the line, but are interested in open to non-specific locations, just other alternate locations. What's the best path forward for that?
Okay, so section 6.14.10 the procedural bylaws says no motion other than an amending motion to table or refer shall be considered until any other motion party before the meeting has been disposed of. So you do have to dispose of this motion. So I suppose someone can make the argument that if this motion fails, that you ought not consider something that all options after that. That I think gears into being unreasonably strict, but the cleanest would be probably to pass this motion, which does consider other options, and then pass an amending motion that further expands, because then it's just a continuation of the First Amendment, rather than a defeat of the First Amendment and then reopen.
Thank you. Councilor Hitt.
Thank you, Mayor Christie. I believe actually you can amend the amending motion. So I think that actually would be the cleanest, and that is fully compliant with our bylaw. That is actually what I would propose is cleanest. So does that make sense that somebody other than the person that made the initial amending motion would amend it to change it to something else? We would vote on that, pass or fail, and so there cascades.
So the amending motion as far as then legislative coordinators.
That the motion be amended to include consideration of a location not only next to the airport, but also next to the golf course and on the city-owned land on the east side of the train tracks.
Yeah, additional. Stephen, go ahead.
I need to ask. Give me, indulge me. That. Show in 6.14.121, is that a copy of procedural bylaw? Or does it, you're sure it doesn't say two amending motions? It's that's what two motions on that.
Reading directly from the procedural bylaw recently, on section 6:14.21, reads as to amend is to insert or strike out word or paragraphs or substitute whole paragraphs or resolutions. This motion may be made by any member. There will be no more than two motions on the table at one time.
So to me, although my recollection was that our intent was to have the maximum of two amending motions at any given time, the actual bylaw is two motions on the table at one time, whether it's a single motion. So I actually think first.
And as much as I appreciate Councilor's input, certainly for anybody watching, this is complicated enough, so we'll do it this way, and I think it still gets to the end result the same, which is a good thing in the intent for council will come through when we're through it. So everybody's clear on the amending motion that's before us now. Any additional input? Please go ahead and vote. If I've already 4-3 that amending motion is passed. Are there any additional considerations? Councilor Sure.
I'll move to amend the motion to consider other sites that may come to light during this investigation.
You. Additional input? Allows for one. Please go ahead and vote. Filling in IP for stimulus and making the necessary changes on the go. Thank you, Mr. Rosen. So motion be amended to include consideration of other locations that come play is the way that reads. Is that correct? Legislative coordinator.
Sorry, I will just reread the motion here. And that the motion be amended to include consideration of other potential locations that may come to.
Is that the intended wording? That's right.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Any additional input? Please go ahead and vote. by a margin of 5-2 that has passed. Councillors Conick and Ross voting against. To give a little change of events there for administration of the three schools to expect that time frame of that information. However, the next meeting would be to expect an update this.
List, we just insert updated list of locations, so like I'm thinking 3 to 5 potential locations, those are going to find tonight, plus 2 more that we identify as possibilities between now and then.
I would certainly be fine with that. That's absolutely, I hear otherwise, that is reasonable. If it was on the 3 that were identified this evening, if there's a couple others, that's fine. Sounds okay with that. I've seen a lot of shapes one way or another.
I think we still have to go on the original percentage.
Councillor Dallas?
Yeah, there, basically, answer your question, yes, yeah, I'm open to whatever responses may come, depending on what happens here. This is difficult for me. It has been long and drawn out, and I think considerable effort and thought has been put into it. And despite that, it has been very difficult to defend to the public. I've been able to change and sway a few minds with extensive conversations and struggle with the public's perception that emergency vehicles somehow do not have the tools to navigate an intersection, especially leaving it farther back from the street setback that it is. I know that anytime I see one, I just simply move over and they drive by me. And I feel like that would be the same at this intersection. And so the traffic concern to me is not valid. Yet the public has been very vocal on this. I've been able to change my wife's mind by putting her in the car and physically driving her to 2 locations and us getting into a heated argument in the car on the way. And then eventually we came to a decision at the end that one of us was correct. But it's been hard, and I feel like the communication of this issue has been very difficult to provide to the public in a manner that satiates their concerns. And that as much as I believe that this is the correct location, I have been told that the public isn't wrong, and so I need to follow through on their concerns and wishes and evaluate some additional sites. So I think I apologize to the fire department that has been looking for a new home and anticipating it. I do hope to find you one very soon. Thank you.
Councillor Conick.
Thank you, very briefly. I would just like to Councillor Dallas's comments. This site has always been number 1 for me, but we've been getting a lot of feedback. You can't simply ignore it. I shouldn't say it. It's been significant feedback, and that's the thing that I want to reiterate. I would encourage the council going forward that whenever the results come back, then maybe we need to do, have a town hall over a weekend or something, and encourage people to come and outline those sites and let them see the pros and cons of each. Maybe do a better job of communicating as to how we arrive at these sites and which one you think is the best before we make it. I thought this was the final determination. Of course, I've got forced motion to look at those sites, or amending motion on the heels of Councillor Billicks's motion, but I still maintain that this is the best site. But again, you can't just toss aside the significant discussions and feedback we've had. And I would encourage a better way of, cost money. We've spent enough on this already. Why not do a mail out and encourage people to come to a town hall session and say, listen, tell us what you think, here's on the sites. Make it, I don't know, I just think we need to do, this is more divisive than I thought it would, and, we need more feedback.
Very briefly, just two comments. One, of course, what started this whole thing is, the working with the flying club. I'm not aware of an official proposal from them, so I feel like we're almost going down a path that isn't necessarily warranted. So that I have that major concern, but because we've now opened it up to other possible sites, it makes me a little bit more potentially interested. But I would definitely agree with the communication. I think we got into this situation because we weren't being as communicative as we should have been right off the hop. When we had narrowed it down to 3 sites, we should have opened that up at that time and then looked for input, in my opinion, because it does. I know that the residents feel like we've been just trying to pull a fast one, essentially. That is exactly what the communication has felt like to them, and that isn't right. And so I'm really disappointed that I feel like I'm letting the fire department down, because they were very clear in what their first choice is and what would best serve the community. And frankly, I put a lot of stock into that because that's something that they do on a regular. But I also can't discount the fact that we weren't successful in our communication and we let the community down. So I think this is kind of have to be a reset. And it's painful because this process has been very long. And it also comes with expenses that are sunk costs at this point in time. So like I'm not prepared to explain what that looks like exactly right now, but the fact of the matter is that there is some cost already. So I will be voting in favor of this, but I do so fairly reluctantly, to be all fair and honest. And I guess we'll see what decision comes next, which will be the next council, I guess, at this point in time. So sorry.
Who knows? Legislative coordinator Bill Loma, got a fairly lengthy motion for us, and have you. If you could please.
See, so the main motion has been amended as that council direct administration to pause work on the development of the new fire hall at 4410 39 Drive, currently Fall Diamond location, and engage with the local flying club to explore the feasibility of locating the fire hall at the North Airport site in the northern portion of 3910 64 Avenue, near the golf course, on city-owned land on the side of the train tracks, and other potential locations that may come to mind.
Is everyone clear on that motion? That's any lights on, please proceed to vote. Motion passed by margin of 6-1 against Councillor Ross. All right, everyone. We do have one in camera. The next meetings are as follows. We have 2 regular meetings. One for September 8th and one for Monday, September 22nd, both at 5:30 here in Chambers. And then we have a committee of the whole meeting. For our last meeting here for September 29th. Same type of place, 5:30 PM here in Chambers. Unless I overlooked any other businesses, which is a distinct possibility this evening. Leaves us with in camera. Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy, and to move in camera.
7:23. Please go ahead and vote.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, my apologies.
Is unanimously in favor. Whenever Mr. Watson gives us issue, we will be in Jeff.